If you could please take your seats. The post-Christmas edition of the Golden Toastmasters Club of Fairfield, Iowa is now in session. We're right here at the club room in the Fairfield Hy-Vee, right at the end of the ice cream aisle, and you'll notice there's a nice display of Toastmasters appliances right outside the door, purely by coincidence, I think. Mission of the Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. I'm going to assume the role of the Toastmaster tonight in the absence of Will Burns, and so I'll now introduce our role players. Our timer, Veda, is in his maiden voyage in that role, I think, so if you could please explain the role of the timer.
Good evening. I will be timing the appointed times for people to conform to. It's a very conformist role, and I've been handed this without instructions, but I know that with further instructions, the main thing to watch out for is that red light. If you see the red light, you need to stop at 30 seconds. If you see the green light, that's a good sign also, because it means you're within the qualifying time. And I guess those are the two lights I really know about.
I'm going to ask Fraser to come back and mentor you a bit.
Thank you.
Go.
Help. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You'll give a report at the end of the week.
And I will.
Our grammarian is Prana.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. On this evening of Toastmasters, I will be monitoring our speeches, but not very closely, just kind of have a vague understanding of all of the great language that's used. So I'm going to be not picking the speeches apart, but I'm going to be listening for clear, exceptional use of the English language, such as the word of the day, which I will put on the board. That's platitude. Not sure what it means yet, but it's going to be on the board. And I will basically...
It's a shallow compliment.
Shallow compliment, yes. That's a shallow compliment. A platitude. So if you use the word of the day, I will make note of it, and I'll give a report at the end of the meeting of any language that just wets my whistle. Any language that wets my whistle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our awe counter will be Miranda.
Good evening. Tonight I will be keeping track of the ums, ahs, pauses, and xeroxes for tonight's Toastmasters.
Thank you. And we'll hear later from our general evaluator, Jean Symington Craig, who has assumed her husband's role, and Dan has assumed Jean's role. She tells me they're totally interchangeable. Oh, I'll be thinking about that. Fraser will bring us a joke a little later in the meeting. I assume his phone will bring him one. So we will now go into the prepared speeches section of the meeting and introduce our first evaluator, which is also me. And I will be introducing Hudaifa. So Hudaifa Shatnawi is a Jordanian software engineer with MUM. He's married to Nada Saleh.
Yes.
And they have two sons, Elias and Mohammed. He spends his time, all of your time, some of his time, his spare time, doing calligraphy if his children do not destroy everything. Udaifa will be giving us Project 5 from the Competent Communicator Manual tonight. The project is called Your Body Speaks. So his objectives are to use stance, movement, gestures, facial expressions, and eye contact to express his message and achieve his speech purpose, and to make his body language smooth and natural. He'll be speaking for 5 to 7 minutes. Are you ready, Mr. Timer?
I'm ready.
You're ready, good. Please welcome Udaifa.
Okay. Have you ever seen a nice, beautiful view, building, bird, flower, or an artwork? You just felt you want to keep looking at that. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and viewers at home, you should have seen a beautiful old historical building like Taj Mahal, Petra, Alhambra Castle, or maybe Eiffel Tower. Or maybe you have seen a very beautiful painting like Mona Lisa. Or maybe you have in your pocket something has a very beautiful sign like Adidas, Apple, or maybe Pepsi, not in your pocket. All these beautiful signs, artwork, are different. They are just beautiful. You don't know why, but they are different than other buildings, than other designs, than other signs. It looks like these people knew the secret, how to design or build these things. In the end of the 12th century, an Italian mathematician, Fibonacci, in his book, Liber Apache, mentioned about this ratio, this mathematical ratio used in all of these buildings or artwork. He has created a series of numbers, started with 1, 1. 1 plus 1 equal 2. 1 plus 2 equal 3. 2 plus 3 equal 5. 3 plus 5 equal 8. 5 plus 8 equal 13. 8 plus 13 equal 21, etc. And if you divide it backward, 21 by 13, 13 by 8, 8 by 5, 5 by 3, all of them, they give the same result, 1.6, some other numbers. This is, or which was later known as Fibonacci number, or the golden ratio. The secret number has been used everywhere in all these artworks. If you look to Alhambra Castle, you will find in each gate there is the complete gate height is 1.6 of the door height if you remove the arch. And the whole building height is 1.6 of the gate height. If you look to the Pepsi sign, you will find the outer circle is 1.6 of the inner circle that made this shape. They knew this secret and they use it. and they made everything beautiful. Human beings knew this secret or ratio, but they did not found it. They did not create it. It's actually exists and found everywhere in the nature. Everywhere means everywhere. If you look to any bird, any flower petals, any tree leaves, any insect wings, even in our bodies, it's in every single part in our bodies. This length is 1.6 of this length. This length is 1.6 of this length. Our height, 1.6 of our legs. It's everywhere. Everywhere you can see and find this ratio. You just need to look around, focus in all these creatures, and find that all creatures have the same structure, built in the same structure. And you will know that all these creatures have been created in a very detailed shape. Every detail is correct and created in the right and correct position and way. And every creature in this universe has been created by one creator. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow, I'm blown away by that speech. Mind stretcher on a cold, cold night. Mr. Timer, can you set aside 2 minutes for us each to fill out our comment sheets to evaluate the speaker? And may I remind you, please sign your comment sheets so Hudaifa will have a little better idea where the comments are coming from. So you don't need to give me the time now, but you can just tell me whether Hudaifa qualified.
Hudaifa did qualify.
He did qualify, thank you.
Minimum and maximum.
Okay, that's all we need at this time. You can give us the detail in your report at the end of the meeting. Okay, we will not need to vote for the best speaker since we have one speaker. So we will move on now to the evaluation section, and Jean Symington Craig will handle that portion of the meeting. Okay.
My shaking is okay.
Uh-oh.
I know, it's totally confusing.
It is.
Well, thank you. Let's go ahead and have our evaluation. And Emery, are you ready to evaluate?
I think I
or
am.
do you need
Yeah, I
any more
think I am.
time?
I
Okay,
had the
great.
2 minutes.
Okay. That was such an interesting speech. And here to evaluate, and this will be a 2 to 3 minute evaluation, is Emery Styron.
Well, I wanted some camera time tonight, and I got it. So, good evening, fellow Toastmasters. No guests, but obviously thousands, if not dozens of viewers at home. I want to congratulate Hudaifa on a slam dunk speech. Really, really excellent. I'll go through the manual and tell what all I liked. Starting with topic selection, did it facilitate body language? Well, we might not have thought so, but he showed us that it did. And broad hand movements, and then I especially liked he got his fingers involved. And then sweeping his arms to show all this artwork. talking about dividing the Fibonacci sequence, and he was given this, which made a visual in our minds. His hands showed the gate height, so on and on, just throughout. And as well, he has picked up on this slightly advanced speaking technique of using the stage. He was over here, and then he was over here. I've jumped my topics a little, but great use of your topic with body language. Preparation, excellent. I don't think anyone could question that he knew his stuff. His manner was confident and enthusiastic. His posture was poised and balanced. He's very comfortable in front of people. His gestures, I've talked about those quite a bit already. Natural, evocative. His body movement was purposeful and smooth. His eye contact was excellent, I think. I saw him looking all over. One comment you might want to, especially with a small crowd, pause a little longer and make sure you're making that connection with every single person and they felt like you were talking directly to them. You can do that with this size of an audience. Facial expression, animated, friendly, genuine. You have a very personable manner about you, which is helpful. Speech purpose was clear to me that you wanted to explain this golden proportion and tie it back to your belief in the Creator. And your organization was logical and clear. What could you have done differently? Just a couple of things. It's because it's not your first language. You have struggled with some words. Creatures. I want to hear you say creatures. Yeah. And then the other thing, I believe that a visual aid or two would have helped that speech. Help us understand that 1/6 ratio and Fibonacci sequence. Just a couple of cards you could hold up or something like that. What did I like? Your enthusiasm, your gestures, and especially the information value. Thank you. Okay. Evaluator.
Right. Looks like as we have already announced, we're going to be doing some mini speeches tonight on topics that we want to talk about. It's a little bit of a grab bag meeting. Now, we don't have someone who's going to be a table topics master. I could go ahead and just have us come up and do our talks. Okay. Now, I will mention, just because we're here, that there's so many topics that can come to mind. We want to always be thinking in terms of our general audience and keeping it somewhat, shall we say, general consumption. So think of the movies, think Disney rather than, whoever else is on the other end of the spectrum. Also, yeah, but I just felt like I should say that because sometimes we get passionate about things and we want to discuss them, and we just have to remember that we do have to make it common denominator in terms of palatability. Okay, so with that, pardon?
Timing, could you repeat the timing?
Yes, I think we could do it tonight, pretty much. We're going to do 3 to 5 minute speeches.
3, 4, 5.
3 is green, 4 is yellow, 5 is red. Okay. So who would like to go first on a topic? Is everyone clear? We're all on the same page now where we are? Okay, great. Okay, so Miranda would like to start us off. And why why don't you come on up, Miranda, and introduce what you're going to be talking about and go from there.
Good evening, Toastmasters, viewers at home, and tonight I would like to talk about 3 things: passion, plan, and promise. I believe with these 3 steps, these 3 entities of decision-making abilities, that we can do anything. Example: passion, plan, and promise. When I was growing up, my grandmother always crocheted. You know, you go out to play, next thing you know, there's a blanket on the table. You go to school and there's a pair of slippers or what have you. She was always crocheting, and I always in the back of my mind knew it was possible. So at some point I took on her passion. Okay, I will be passionate about moving yarn around a stick to create things. I had a plan. Well, I'll take this course, I'll look up these patterns, I'll buy this yarn. Okay, now how did I become good at it? I promised myself I would become good at crochet. See, with these 3 ingredients, you can do anything you want. How can we make a difference in the world today? Well, with that one, I like to start off with the promise. I will make a difference in the world. Oh goodness, let me find my passion. Anyone have a plan on how we're going to make a difference in the world? Well, doesn't matter, because with those 3 things, we can do anything. Another example of a passion, plan, and promise. Toastmasters. All right, Toastmasters. We take on the plan. I will attend every Tuesday night. I plan to be here every Tuesday of every week. And now the passion, we have to keep rekindling in ourselves that passion. But why? Well, we have the plan to be here, and we choose to have the passion, but the promise is that we will become more effective at delivering our heart and soul unto other people. We will be able to impact the world and come up with passions that come to fruition simply because we decided that they ought to. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. So Dan's evaluating. I'm going to do something a little radical, which is that we're going to, and it's fine because Miranda got us started off, but I'm going to encourage all of us to be in front of the lectern rather than in back of, just to be in that cozy, no gap, no distractions between us. Is that all right with everybody? Okay, good. And I found myself looking at Miranda going, is that crocheted? Is that da-da-da? Yeah, so we're already getting curious. All right, who would like to be our next speaker? Okay, Prana. Woo! All right.
Your hand. The hand.
It's all right.
Okay. Every time I meet someone new, within the first 5 minutes of talking to them, I will shamelessly have plugged the new cryptocurrency called Bitcoin. It's a hard fact, but it's a fact, and it's a sad fact, but it's true. You all need Bitcoin. There's absolutely nothing backing it. There's no gold behind it. There's nothing behind it. It's currency. You know, the American dollar, people are worried that gold isn't backing the dollar anymore, but Bitcoin there's nothing backing it to begin with, so you don't have to worry about it. It's a currency, and so nothing backing it. Bitcoin is let's just have an example here. If I had an orange, right, and I wanted to sell it to you, I would say, Jean, here's an orange, but I'd like you to. I'm just trying to give an example. What is Bitcoin? Do we all know what Bitcoin is? Have you heard of what Bitcoin is? Yes? No? Not at all. Okay. So we all know what a Excel sheet is. If you imagine every time I give you an orange, I'm actually proving every transaction ever sold, every orange ever sold, every toilet paper roll ever sold. If it was bought with Bitcoin, I'm proving that transaction with every purchase. So I give you the orange, and I give you the ledger of every transaction. That's all Bitcoin is. That's it. It's just a transaction ledger. So there's really nothing behind it, but it's a mining record. Every time you mine a Bitcoin, if you think about it as like a gold nugget, there's a nugget out there, you mine it, right? But to mine a Bitcoin takes, you were talking about Fibonacci, right? There's a mathematical sequence in Bitcoin, and every single time you mine a Bitcoin, you're finding an algorithm, like a really complex algorithm, and you're proving it. You're proving that algorithm. And the more Bitcoins into existence, the harder that algorithms get. So it's like a, I'm going to describe it. It's like a scarcity becomes value, if you will. The more scarce it is, the more value it is. So that's all Bitcoin is. It's just scarcity, and value is based on scarcity. So there's 17 million coins in existence right now. And I'm not asking you to believe that Bitcoin is the problem or the solution to our global currency crisis, and yet I'll give you maybe a pro and a con for this currency, or a couple pros and cons. One pro is that the limited supply creates a value, and therefore the price will keep going up. And a con is that, actually here's another pro. Another pro is that it's all secure. So every time I sell you that orange, I prove the ledger, I prove this transaction that it exists, and there's this completely foolproof network, because every single computer in the network proves every single transaction. So there's really no way for it to, it's like hack-proof. So they say. So that's the pro, the second pro. The con is that having a currency that isn't regulated can create ransomware attacks. You've all heard of these ransomware attacks. The average cost of the ransomware attacks these days is $1,100 per ransomware attack. So like hospitals, schools, government agencies are getting, hackers come in, they take over a computer, they say, you have no access to your files until you give me 1/10 of a Bitcoin. It's not a lot of money, but it's also kind of a chunk in the rate, chunk in the little bit plus a little bit plus a little bit is a lot. And that's a platitude right there. Little plus little plus little is a lot. For all those who didn't know. So, I'm going to wrap this up. The ransomware is a problem. The unregulation of it, you can't shut down Bitcoin. There's really no way to shut it down because every computer in the world, as long as the internet exists, Bitcoin will exist. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. By the way, there is a Fresh Air episode, Terry Gross, an hour. It happened last month, if I recall correctly. You could go into the podcast and just type in Bitcoin, and she goes in line by line, lay person, into Bitcoins. And it really caught my attention that there are whole towns in China that are just dedicated to mining Bitcoins, and so they're an abstraction, but there's something there, and they're concrete, and it's just still not clear to me.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably still look for currency that's regular green or metal to get my orange. But I'm just going to suggest that for you. It's a thought.
Terry Gross.
Terry Gross. The show is Fresh Air. It's like a whole hour about Bitcoin for people who, no, it's just this one interview, but she's interviewing someone who knows a lot about what's happening around the world. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. All righty. Our next speaker would be, Fraser, are you raising your hand?
Okay, I suppose.
That's how they raise their hands in Dominica?
No,
Echo?
I wasn't raising my hand.
All right, okay, here we go. Okay.
Some days you do stupid things, and today, well, I'll say I do stupid things, and today was one of those days.
Oh.
The day was going all right. I knock off a couple things, feeling pretty good. Then this afternoon, I had to defrost this refrigerator. You know this? No, first those refrigerators that don't, you have to manually defrost. Well, I think this one had never been defrost for the past years. I mean, it had ice this thick all over. So first, I get the ice off the roof. Ice off the floor. And I'm feeling good. Now the ice at the back is a little tough. And I do what I know I shouldn't do. I take a shower.
Yeah.
And I actually hit, and then I hear. So, well, I had to go figure out. I need to get one I had somewhere in some garage, and it is. You know how outside is? The ground covered with snow. Boy, first I had to go and shovel in front of this guy. I mean, I had enough shoveling for the past couple of days already. I didn't need more. Man. Anyway, shovel, look in there. Yeah, there was a refrigerator. So I had to go and get my trailer now to get it. Okay, put it on. That worked out okay. Drive to where I have to install it. Ah, man. Well, you know, the problem with the door. So, I mean, it's not, the door wasn't wide enough for me to just pull it through. Ah, man. So, okay, I had to remove the door from the refrigerator. And I didn't have the tools because it was in the other vehicle that I had. Anyway, finally, I got it in. And it was too tall for where that one was. So I had to move it to the side. Anyway, and there it fit perfect, but the cord a little too short now, it can't go. So I had to, well, get an extension. Okay. And, well, finally, everything did work out. At least it working, right? But, I mean, it was just stupid. I shouldn't have done that in the first place, you know? Just being a little patient, more patient, and so on. I would have felt much better at the end of the day.
All right. Good job. As if it wasn't cold enough, you're having to mess with a refrigerator to try to get it across town, and yeah, I don't know if refrigerators are self-defrosting now, but I do remember that desire to just, come on, just, so now I never did that, but now I know what happens if you miss, if you do it. Okay, so that was an interesting story, made my day feel a lot better. Okay, so who else wants to go? Veda, come on up. Veda, see if you can go around the back or the side, because we try not to anger our cameraman by getting in his zone here. I know, he looks like a nice guy, but.
You would know.
Yeah. All right. You get to talk about something that you would like to talk about for 3 to 5 minutes, something that's been on your mind, something that you'd like to experiment a little bit with in terms of expressing.
Madam Topic Master, fellow Toastmaster, and invisible guests, and viewers at home who are definitely invisible here. The last 2 days, 2 to 3 days have been a very interesting time in my life. I got to review my own life based on a life of a dear friend who's passed. Last Saturday evening, I received the news that my friend Dr. Robert David, or otherwise named Roberto at birth, passed away. Today was his memorial service. And you never know when someone is going to go. You know, he was happy, healthy last week. He was playing ping pong last week with his friends, and he didn't feel well one night. The next day, he didn't feel well again, and a friend took care of him, and I called up at about 8 o'clock, and the EMTs were on the way, and that was it for him. He was, I'd say, about 63 years old, in fairly good physical condition. And I think that he knew deep down that he didn't have much time left. I talked to him a few weeks ago, and he talked about, in roundabout ways, possibly moving on with his life out of this body. He certainly had a sense of things because he was, earlier in his life, an emergency room doctor. If anybody would know what to do in an emergency, it would have been him. The fact that he chose not to do that when he had the hospital tell him that only Iowa City could figure out what was going on spoke to the fact that he really knew that it was his time to go, and that he wanted to go comfortably and peacefully in his comfortable apartment, which is north of town near the Raj. I haven't known Robert well for too long, but about a year ago I took a trip with him to California. It was a crazy whirlwind trip, and we had pedal to the metal in his white Volkswagen station wagon, going 65 miles an hour or 70, whatever the speed limit was. We got there in 3 days, much to his detriment, where he said, "I'm so flustered, I'm so tired, we need to leave now." And somehow I convinced him to stay there a week in California, and then we returned in 3 days. So we had 6 days of road trip, 7 days of staying in California, and it was quite a time for me to get to know Robert mostly, because we didn't get all that much time. He was able to visit with my family, my sister and her family, and he was very kind to them. He gave some free consultation to my sister, and he was very patient. He was not feeling that well at that time either from not traveling well. The tremendous thing is he seemed like a very private person. He seemed like he would be just your friend. I only heard of him going out with 2 or 3 friends at a time, yet only through Facebook was the news of his death passed around, for the most part, or by word of mouth. And the entire funeral parlor, I'd say between 200 and 250, was completely packed with people. His brother, who was on Perugia, was there, and everyone had the sense that he was really, really peaceful. He had a big smile on his face, in fact, in the open ceremony. We all participated in a very personal way, and we also had a group way of doing some of the prayers together. You know, I wish he could have been here in a more public setting to let people into his secrets of life and secrets of health, but he always dealt with people in a very personal way. Man, top of this.
That is tough. Okay.
Okay for you to speak, Jean.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Says, is that you with your hand up? Okay. Don't get me started. All right. Okay. You okay? Okay, good. Fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, I am working on the whole issue of the sexual harassment that has come out in the U.S. this year, almost the end of this year. And I am getting pieces of it clear in my mind. So I feel like when I talk about it, I get more organized in my thinking with it. One area of it is the definitions, going all the way from, you hear it in the news, sexual misbehavior, misconduct, harassment, assault, rape, so all the way up and down. To me, it's important to, seems to be important to delineate those, because some are less severe, some are more severe, even though all of them are something we want to get rid of. The sexual harassment, it particularly relates to creating a hostile work environment, and I get that. And so things are different a little bit in the workplace versus the just out and about in public. So that's one big sphere that I'm working on, is to not lump all those together, but to have them be in a sequence of degrees of trespass. There's a whole nother section that has to do with due process versus believing the accusers, who for centuries, women, and this is, I'm going to say particularly women, there's so many restraints to being able to come forward and actually report this kind of, whatever is happening, one of those degrees of things that I've talked about, because it's very difficult to prove. It's a he said, she said. So accusers have basically run into challenges on being believed and furthermore being shamed as a result, that somehow it was their fault and that they need to carry some guilt and shame with them. So I'm working with that. And by the way, my background is a lot with women's liberation back in the 70s. I was one of the, in high school, I was one of the people who said, wait a minute, what do you mean just because I'm a woman, I can't do certain things? I just didn't relate to that. So I've always felt very close to women's rights and women being able to be who they are and not being restrained. So there's a big part of me that's really enjoying and rejoicing in the fact that there's people are feeling free to come forward and accuse. At the same time, I am aware, theoretically, that some people could lie. Someone who had a relationship with a gentleman who felt vindictive after that relationship ended for whatever reason decides to come forward and basically do the Salem witch hunt approach. I point my finger at you, therefore you are guilty. And my due process side of things is still trying to work out how do we weigh those. My sympathies are with the women, the accusers. My sympathies really are there. But I also have to recognize that intellectually there has to be some due process. There has to be some way, innocent until proven guilty on some level. So how do we make that all work? So that's another part. The third part that I'm working on now, and this is what I wanted to bring out tonight, is, so what do men do going forward? A lot of these things have happened. We're working it out. But how do men and women interact now going forward? And men are saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to even, I'm afraid if I stick my toe out, I'm going to get accused of something, or what do I do? And what I'm seeing a lot and what I'm coming together around is consent. The concept of consent. That this means that, let's just say a man is wanting to be closer to a woman at every phase. He's asking, okay, if I do this? Is it all right if I touch you, fill in the blank? We still good? Can I do this? Would love to. Is it okay? All of those things. That's throughout the process. The woman, and some people say, oh, this would kill the buzz, so to speak. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Because when you're being asked repeatedly, is this okay? Is this okay? And you're saying, yes, it's good. It's good. That is a good thing. It feels good. So I'm just going to tell you that's okay. If a woman says, I suddenly went from green to red, Beta. No? There was a yellow there? Okay. My last comment is the permission, and then all of a sudden you're asked something and you get told, no, I'm not comfortable with that, or actually I want to stop now. I want to stop. You have to be prepared to stop. Like, yep, we're good. Oh, nope, stop. You can't just go, well, I'm sorry, I'm continuing. That's where it goes off the rails. So that's my current thinking on what men need to know, is to just be continuing to ask for the consent, know that it will not be a buzzkill, it'll actually be a little bit of a aphrodisiac thing, and be prepared to follow the instructions if you get told, not right now. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Okay, I'm sorry, Beta. I was really watching my colors, but I must have been colorblind there.
I may have made a mistake. If you had finished up, though, 30 seconds after you had said that, I would have said to give it to you, but...
Yeah, I can't, I have to, I'm a color person. I'm like going, okay.
Well, I understand that, but once you saw it and you commented to me, you should have finished up within 30 seconds after that, and you took a minute.
Yeah, no, I know.
So,
I know. Because I went from, I
well, I don't know if I...
Yeah. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I got it done. But I'm just saying, and our yellow and our green are a little funny. Okay, that's it. Enough on that for me. But I'm working on it, so this is all good. I hope to give you later installments. Maybe I'll be providing consultation to some of the people when they start calling me from Washington on my views.
Big into a full length.
Yeah. Okay, so now we have 3 people left, and we're still going well. What do you mean? You think you're gonna escape?
I'm looking at the schedule.
You think you're gonna escape? Well, what is the schedule?
Well, I'm evaluating, so I'm gonna get up and talk.
Well,
I
yeah,
gave him 10 minutes to evaluate.
10 minutes to evaluate. Oh, 10 minutes? So he could definitely. We still could have
Well,
another
2 minutes
speaker.
per 5-minute speech.
Okay.
4 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, we do, we'll do 4 speakers in a 2 to 3 minute evaluation. It doesn't require a lot, but these are, all right, okay. So are we agreed? Are we saying per Dan that we are done with these speeches? Or do we?
On the schedule, the evaluator is supposed to stand up at 8:41.
You see how he adheres to that, Emily? I mean, that's power. What do you think, is that what we need to be, Emery?
I think so. That's how, I made the schedule like that on purpose.
Okay. All righty, well then we are on schedule. And first, I'm just gonna ask our timer to tell us which people qualified. In a way, this isn't table topics though, so do we?
Let's vote like it's 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's vote like it's hit.
Okay,
And I will have to say that, unfortunately, I may have goofed up on Jean's speech, but she still went with a minute and a half over time, and I would say that does not qualify. I'm sorry, Jean.
no, that's all right.
Miranda
I agree.
only went 2 minutes.
Just give time, just give the
Who
time.
qualified?
Oh, yeah, don't give the time, just give the name of the people.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
I'm telling you that to clear the fact that she did not qualify if she only did 2 minutes.
Miranda?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so she was under. She was
She's
under.
She is under.
Oh.
I'm approximating times also here.
Okay,
Everyone else, Prana, Frazier, and myself did qualify.
okay. So there you go. You have an over, an under, and 3 qualifiers.
So we have
So you can,
votes for Prana, Frazier, or Veda.
call you up. Frazier, are you gonna count those?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, yeah, I've got 2 here. Let me just get Dan up here. Is this on? Okay, we're back on track. Now we want to hear from our table topic / mini speech evaluator, Dan Craig.
Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, I'm proud to have been bestowed with a new title, the Mini Speech Evaluator.
How much time are you going to want? How much time is this?
4 to 5. And we're off. Our first speaker was Miranda. She did a number of things very well. I liked that from the beginning of the talk, she told us she was going to have 3 points. She told us the 3 points, then she gave us an illustration. That made everything very clear to us. We felt immediately that we were going to follow the talk. Jean sort of mentioned already my only suggestion is also to come out from the lectern. If she had just pushed this against the wall, then you would have been perfect. I also like that you gave the story, the grandma story, and that you kept a common theme of these 3 things running throughout. That was very strong. Good eye contact, good conclusion, and wrap up. Prana was next. I thought he had a really great start. He said, every time I meet someone new, within a few minutes, I'm telling them about Bitcoins. And so then he was telling us about Bitcoin. I think there are a couple of things that you might have improved. Small thing, I don't think you greeted the audience. The second thing was that when you were explaining to us about the Excel spreadsheet and the purchase of every orange, I was drifting further away. I know that was the part where we're supposed to grasp the concept, but it just didn't quite hit. So you might work on that part. We're telling everybody about it, so work on that part a little more. I like that you used the word of the day platitudes in your talk. I thought your pros and cons were good. So you had a lot of nice content. Fraser was the next speaker. I really liked your start. You started out, some days you do stupid things. I don't think you greeted the audience. And my other suggestion for you was that remember, you have to speak up for us. You had quite a bit of your talk where you were kind of swallowing your words, just mumbling a little bit, I guess you'd say. So I didn't know till the end that you were talking about a refrigerator. I'm sorry, I just missed it. Okay, I knew you stabbed something. I wasn't clear what it was. But you had really good body language, as you know, the stabbing the thing and this, and no, the cord's too short and it's too tall. That all worked very well. So nice talk. Next was Veda. He greeted the audience. I thought he gave us a good start. He said the last 2 days were a very interesting time. I was reviewing my life in terms of a friend who had recently passed. My only real suggestion for you, Veda, is about your posture delivery. You might not have been aware, but for a while you were kind of doing this, which is a little too casual. And then after that you were doing this. So if you could just kind of loosen up for us, it would be a little stronger. But you had good eye contact. When you were giving a little story where your friend was speaking, you kind of imitated his voice, so that was a nice vocal variety. And then the strongest part was that it was a touching story. It was touching to you, and you transmitted that to us very effectively. You talked about, you know, he dealt with people on an individual level. But then the fact that the funeral home was completely packed, he had dealt with all those individuals in that and made a connection with them. So it really was quite touching. Nice job. And finally, Jean. As usual, Jean did many things well. I'm going to just throw out the one suggestion. Don't hassle the timer. I thought at one point she was going to go back to the back of the room.
I love hassling the timer.
Yeah.
Whoever it is.
But you did many good things. Let's not dwell on that. Let's think about the good things. You greeted the audience. You had good gestures, good eye contact. You had a clear unfolding for us of something you thought very deeply about. You kept us moving along with you as you unfolded those points. So you were explaining everything very much so that we could follow them and think about them along with you. And then I like that you channeled those points toward the idea of a solution, an angle that maybe society should be thinking about. The idea of consent should always be lively in everybody's mind. I believe that's, yes, I don't have any other suggestions for you, Madam General Evaluator.
All right, moving right along. Let me grab my here. By the way, Dan, the first time he kissed me, he asked me, "May I kiss you?" And that's not what I was used to have. It was just very nice. It was very respectful. So that's all I'm gonna say about past experience. That's all I'm saying. Dan is back there turning shades of red. But I'm just saying, it's a good thing, consent. Alrighty, let's hear from our timer. We'll go through and hear our roles. Vader, let's hear from you. Clap, 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 clap.
Good evening, Madam General Evaluator. Hy-Vee qualified at 5 minutes and 50 seconds. The other times were Miranda at 2 minutes, Prana at 4:55, Fraser at 4 minutes, myself at 5 minutes and 25 seconds, Jean at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Emery went 10 seconds over the time of, he did 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Dan also went over time for his evaluation. I thought he should have chosen a little more time, but due to his choice, he went over at 6 minutes and 15 seconds. Was there any other times that I've omitted?
I think you've got them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I can't decide whether to clap like the Queen or clap like something.
Beatniks.
Beatniks. Okay, I'll do beatniks for this tonight. No, that's not gonna work, I guess. That's good, it's good. Okay, so when I'm clapping, I point to you and you'd make the noise. All right, okay. So, you've got all kinds of noises. Ah. He's
I'll make something with this. It's very effective.
okay, all right, well, okay, so we've got clapping support in here. By the way, thank you, Hy-Vee, for reminding us that we can vote for the evaluator, best evaluator. We had Dan, we had Emery. However, it sounds like both of our evaluators were a little over time. So it's a draw but we don't have to worry about it. It's not a platitude.
I'm sorry.
Trying to get it in there. All right.
You said it.
Okay, our next role player would be our grammarian. Now, this is a 2 minute report.
All right, so keep it.
Yay, grammarian!
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Hy-Vee was our first speaker, and I thought the most powerful phrase was that Fibonacci is in everywhere. It's in the insect's wings, it's in the tree's leaves, and it's even in our bodies, and you demonstrated that with the ratio. It was epic. So I love that. Emery said at one point, based on that speech, that's a mind stretch on a cold, cold night. And I'm not sure what that means. Never heard that before, but I thought it was good. Miranda, you said the promise is that we will make a difference in Toastmasters. The promise is that we will make a difference. Fraser, if I had done it right and been patient, I'd have been much better off today. I mean, I feel like we should start the day anticipating ending the day well, so we can have that feeling without making the wrong choices. And I wish you the best tomorrow.
And that is a platitude.
And that is a platitude. Jean had platitude, I had platitude, Miranda had platitude, and Veda said it was enough time to know him even though it wasn't much time. And I think that's it. That's my report. Thanks. Thanks everybody.
Thank you. All right. And then our odd counter, Miranda. Please tell us how we did on our filler words.
All right. Mr. Fraser, one you know. Prana, 3 ums and 1 so. Veda, 2 1 and and a tongue click. Jean, 1 Dan, clean. Emery, 1 1 so. And Hudaifa, 1 so and 1.6 Xerox.
All right. Oh my gosh. I'm supposed to do, okay. Now we need to hear from we'd like to hear from our joke master. Okay, good.
Well, good evening, fellow Toastmasters. I'll give you a Caribbean joke. Well, yes. Anyway, there was this accident at a busy intersection. Right. So a lot of people gathered around, and this reporter, he wanted to get through. So he said, "Hey, give me room, make room, it's my mother. I had the accident." So everybody passed. And there was a donkey.
So he was exposed. Yes. All right. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I actually have to confess that I did fall down on the job in terms of keeping my good, solid notes on the evaluation. So let me just see. We had Emery. Emery used the manual, which is very important. We always want to be evaluating the performance to the objectives that are in the manual. Emery did that. He gave a lot of positive feedback. Did you feel encouraged by his feedback? Really well done. He pointed out, he was very specific. He gave examples of what was done correctly. So he didn't just say Hudaifa used gestures and moved around on the stage. He actually showed what that looked like and moved around. All in all, it was a very solid evaluation. What was the suggestion that you gave, Emery?
Visual aids and little longer eye contact.
Very good. So as we always want to do in evaluations, we always want to give some area for the speaker to consider improving. Now, the speaker may or may not agree with what the evaluator says, but it can be something to think about. And if on the written evaluations that he's getting, there are similar comments, it can be an extra, oh, maybe I should pay attention to this because I'm getting it from more than one person. So that was very well done. Dan got up, and it's always interesting because there are not objectives for mini speeches or for table topics. So they're more like general speeches. So does a person have an opening? Is the body connecting to the opening? Is there a conclusion that wraps up and pulls it, ties it all together in a nice bow? Like we're just out of Christmas, so we're all thinking packages with bows on them. How well did the person use the various delivery mechanisms that we have, gestures and vocal variety, like that? And I think Dan did a very good job. He pointed out a number of specifics to people. There was something he said, talked about the graph, the Excel spreadsheet, and Dan said I started to drift away. So he used a little humor in there. It felt funny and it was okay, right? Yeah.
Pick apart like a pro eating.
But with humor, with humor, with humor. Yes, yes. So Dan can pick roadkill apart in a very humorous, nice way, so that even though you're lying there splat on the pavement, you still feel like there's hope.
I like a little bit of.
Maybe next lifetime. Yeah. Okay. 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 So that's Dan. Dan is always, you always feel very uplifted by Dan, and he did give specifics. Probably should have asked for a little more time. We probably should have given it to him. We didn't know because we haven't done this before. Our timer was impeccable, so sometimes you go over, and that's that. that's my evaluation for our evaluators. And now, I think the natives are getting restless here.
That's like a hook pulling you off stage.
Is that the hook? Are you giving me a hook?
I'm not giving the hook. Am I giving you the hook?
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
giving the hook to you. I'm giving you the hook.
Jeez, the disrespect of the younger generation. All right, so at this point, I'd like to hand the meeting back over to our Toastmaster. Emily.
Now, I am going, fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home, to take refuge behind the lectern. Because I'm afraid. And because I have my marked up agenda here so I can stay on track. This is the time when we give meeting awards. 9:03, so we're running a couple of minutes behind. But not too bad, really. And so I'd like to give our first pair of awards to a gentleman who was rhythmically challenged. Our best speaker, and gave our Your Body Speaks Award. And now for the real suspense. Drum roll, extended drum roll. Best Table Topics, mini speech, Veda.
I'd like to make a quick comment. I actually was extremely astounded at everyone else's speeches. I've never seen a better set of speeches in my life in terms of having introductions, having conclusions, having examples, having vocal variety, and having gestures. I am just honored to be in this club.
Well, I don't believe that there's anything I could say that would close the meeting off any more appropriately than that. So thank you, Veda. Does anyone have any word they need to bring before the membership? Anyone who will commit to speak next week?
It is correct, we're having a meeting next week. Regular time.
An officer meeting too.
Yeah, we have all
That's
this.
right, yeah. Officer meeting and regular meeting.
What's the?
I was gonna say, actually, it's not next week, it's next year.
Next week and next week. Again, as everyone should serve as vice president of education. Sometimes it really gives you an appreciation of how this club works. I would like to say that it is extremely helpful if everyone every week could say, yeah, I'm going to be there or I'm not going to be there. Obviously, things come up at the last minute and we're all subject to life, but just trying to put a meeting together, an agenda together, and not knowing who's going to come. You make some guesses based on recent behavior, but we're a small enough group anyway, and then when I take out those who haven't been attending for several weeks, we're an even smaller group, and it's very challenging to try to assign the jobs in a way that the Toastmaster will get here and not have to shuffle the deck again. So I would ask you if you could please let me know or go onto the website and mark whether you're going to be there or be absent. And then I would also ask anyone want to speak next week? Veda, okay. And Miranda, you were up for a
Yeah,
speech and got ill?
I have a tooth pulled, so
Yeah.
yes, I would like to redo mine.
Okay. All right, so we have 2 to start with. Next
Dan,
week.
can I have your advance
Manual? Don't have a manual.
I'm like,
Okay, any further work? Dan, you had your hand up at one point.
Just asking about the meeting next week.
Okay, all right. No further business, meeting adjourned.